welcome to this Saturday or this Friday evening's Facebook Live. I am again an American fundraiser in Australia, and I'm joining you live today from Mollymook Beach in New South Wales, Australia. Every week I try to feature a different location, and this week you get this beautiful vista. I hope you can see it. Let's see if you can see it, of Mollymook Beach behind me. You can certainly hear the surf. There it is, right? Gorgeous. I hand pick out these spots each week, and I try to find unique locations in wherever I'm at in Australia. And lately I have a sunglass fetish, so I have a new pair. Last week I had on hibiscus sunglasses because fundraising is fun, right? Some of us have bow ties and other things. I like sunglasses, so I actually picked these up. They're called Pervs. Weird name, right? But they were from a surf shop in on the Gold Coast, just south of Brisbane, when I made a recent trip there. So thank you for joining me. There's Caitlin on with us now. Feel free to type in your questions in the comment box below. I'm going to keep myself a little dark so you can see this beautiful scenery behind me. Today I wanted to share with you, I do webinars for this company called Charity How To. Some of you may know about Charity How To or may have seen some of their webinars, but I do one specifically on capital campaign planning. And I get a lot of requests from clients on how to put together a capital campaign plan and what exists in a capital campaign plan. So I'm actually going to take you through a quick step through around different components of what goes into a capital campaign plan. So one of the things before you start to plan for your capital campaign, you really need to look closely at recruiting the best possible team for your capital campaign. Now, I have actually discontinued client contracts because they're not able to secure a strong enough capital campaign committee, right? So the capital campaign committee can make or break the success of your eventual capital campaign. So who do you need on that capital campaign committee? Well, you certainly need folks with some strategic guidance that can provide some strategic guidance, but you also need people who, obviously, if you're going to mount a large major fundraising capital campaign, you are going to need folks who have access to networks or who are influential or persuasive in your community. There is no doubt about it that in order to raise this a large amount of money, you need folks like that involved with your capital campaign. So I often say, don't use the warm body approach to recruiting capital campaign volunteers. Be strategic. Be thoughtful about who you need. Don't beg people to participate on your capital campaign committee. Try them out with small to increasingly more difficult tasks to see how they actually do. And I also recommend that you use a peer-to-peer based model. Just as we would do with capital campaign solicitations, I also highly recommend that you recruit the chairperson first for your capital campaign. And once you have that chairperson engaged and in place, then you work with that person to identify who else should be on the committee and have that person vet the list and determine, who do we have the right mix and who else should be on it, and then actually go out and recruit those committee members to serve with them. So using a peer-to-peer model is very, very effective. Hi, Janice. How are you? I hope all is well in Texas. The second component of good capital campaign planning, of course, is setting a realistic campaign goal, right? So anyone out there, there's some folks watching, feel free to type into the comments box some questions if you have any, specifically in regards to capital campaigns or even large fundraising or endowment campaigns. Certainly to set a financial or campaign goal, it takes a number of components to do that. First off, you have to lay out your entire project budget. How much is this entire project going to cost you? Once you have that, then you determine what the other sources of funding may be. Things like municipal bonds. You may want to take out a mortgage for a piece of that. You may have some funds or resources set aside, so that'll all go against the goal. And then what a lot of people forget to include in their capital campaign fundraising goal is campaign costs. And what do I mean by campaign costs? Because people often get, staff, consultants. Yes, staff and consultants are one component of capital campaign costs. However, that's not the only campaign cost that should be included. What about infrastructure things that need to be put into place? Do you have a database system? Do you need to obtain one? Hopefully by the time you get to a capital campaign, you already have some of those core infrastructure pieces in place. However, you have to think about materials, printing, collaterals, any revisions to websites, new design of website, investment in social media when you get to the community phase of the capital campaign, donor recognition pieces. I say to my clients, you need to cost those in as campaign costs. Donor recognition pieces, installation of those. It's not just capital campaign consultants. Now, I often get asked, how much should the campaign costs run? Unfortunately, I say it's a percentage base. So the smaller your capital campaign goal is, the larger the campaign costs are going to be. I highly recommend that you keep campaign costs anywhere between 7, 8 to 15% of the actual campaign goal. So determine what those campaign costs would be and add them to the capital campaign fundraising goal. Does that all make sense, how we come about with the actual campaign goal and what goes into it? Then the next step with capital campaign planning is that you need to create a gift chart. How many of you out there have gone through the exercise of creating a gift chart? It's a very, very important tool, and I recommend that gift charts be used for more than just capital campaigns. I say if you're running an annual campaign or a calendar year-end campaign, do a gift chart. Figure out how many gifts how many prospects. So it's not just how many donors you're going to need to reach your campaign goal, but it's also the number of prospects needed to obtain the number of gifts needed to reach your campaign goal. And what they say is it's a 4-to-1 ratio. So you need 4 prospects for every 1 donor. So keep that in mind. You're going to need a lot of prospects in order to reach your fundraising goal, because as we know, not everyone gives. If you're interested in seeing samples of a gift range chart, I can certainly send some of those along if you private message me. Blackbaud also has a gift range chart calculator that's available on their website. If you Google Blackbaud gift range chart calculator, you will see it. I caution in my webinars and say, be very careful about using canned gift chart calculators, because you do need to keep, in fact, the maturity level of your organization, your donor base, all of those things that make your organization particularly unique. So once you've recruited your capital campaign team, you've set your capital campaign goal, you've developed your gift chart, and I actually have a webinar just on developing gift charts and customized gift strings if you're interested in that. You then use that information to go about and actually create a donor recognition plan. Now, this gets tricky. So you take the gift range chart and you say, okay, we need X amount of gifts in this range. It provides some of those levels of gifts that are needed. What I highly recommend to come up with a donor recognition plan is that you pull out your building plans and you look at them. You lay them out on a table, and maybe you have a pack of stickies. And what you do is you kind of note every particular possible naming opportunity that there may be on a sticky note. There's 3 bedrooms, write them down. There's a meeting space, there's a foyer, whatever they may be. Now, I often get asked by folks or clients, is it the biggest space that we need to put the top dollar amount to? And I say, well, wait a minute, not necessarily so. What I believe is that the way you do named gift opportunities or named gift opportunities is you look for the wow factor. So what space is going to have the most visibility? To me, that's more important to give to a donor, an area that wouldn't necessarily, it might be the biggest space, but the biggest space could be the kitchen, and the kitchen could be in the back of the building, and a donor would never ever see that. So ensure that your named gift opportunities, the higher levels, have the wow factor, meaning it's a place that's going to be front and central to get donor recognition. So it may not be your top spot. It may be the foyer that every single person walks into, that the donor, that should be your top giving opportunity. So it's not necessarily the space that gets the largest dollar ticket name to it. It is what I call the wow effect. So put all the different name gift opportunities that you can come up with. I've even seen flagpoles and gardens and benches and not bathrooms, but they've been discussed. But things like just everything that you could possibly name in an organization as part of this new building project. Put it down and look at how many you have to offer, what your gift chart says, and remember the wow factor. So, okay, we looked at recruiting your capital campaign team. We looked at really what goes into a capital campaign goal and how to develop rather quickly that gift range chart. Talked about named gift opportunities and then setting a realistic campaign timetable. It was interesting because I heard recently, or I read somewhere, that capital campaigns are taking much longer these days to come to completion. And that may be true due to the reality of things. However, I highly recommend that you keep capital campaign pledge periods down to 3 years for cash flow purposes. And because many organizations, once they finish one capital campaign, are just ready to roll into the next one. Creating there's a great infographic with a timeline out there done by, everyone probably knows Andrea Kildestar, who wrote the capital campaign book, the manual on how to do them. She has a great infographic that shows the timeline of how a capital campaign should unfold. So basically you have the pre-planning stage, which is all the things that need to happen in order for your organization to have an effective capital campaign. So ensuring that the infrastructure is essentially in place for that capital campaign. You have a database, you have staff, you have a history of giving, your giving is increasing, it's on an upswing. And then from there you move into a feasibility study. So a feasibility study is basically a process in which you take the fundraising goal and the gift range chart and the case for support, and you take that out to a group of identified donor and donor prospects, and you ask them a series of objective questions, including what they think their gift range might be, including whether or not they know of any campaign leadership or they're willing to serve in a campaign leadership role. Those feasibility studies usually take around 3 to 6 months per se. Currently doing one on Nantucket Island. One of our associates are doing one. So, and then from there you move into the quiet or the lead gift phase, and I say capital campaigns are run top down, inside out, meaning you solicit your top gifts first and then you move downwards for there. It's very hard to make up a capital campaign gift at the lower level. So if you start at the bottom and you seek a major gift from a donor, and that donor comes in, let's just say you start and you get him at the bottom and he comes in at a much lower level, well, it's very hard to then make up that gift if you don't get that in the gift range chart. However, if you start seeking the top gifts first and you don't get them, then you just adjust the rest of the gift range chart to reflect that. So then you know you have to seek more smaller gifts to make up for that larger gift lost. Inside out basically means you solicit your family of donors first, your board, your staff, your volunteers, your advisory council, your former board members, and you move out from there. Once you have reached that, and you should have about 60% of your contributions in hand before you actually move into the more public phases of the capital campaign, and then that's where other strategies come into play. So you may have a major gifts level, and that might be gifts between 25 and 100,000 or whatever those are determined, and then below that you'll have the community gifts phase, which is where you do your direct mail and your peer-to-peer and your social media and all of that. So it gives you a sense. If you're interested in seeing that infographic, it really outlines the different phases and how long they take. The lead gift phase, could be 3 to 6 months. I'm just guessing. I didn't bring that particular piece of information with me this morning. I can send you a copy of that infographic if you just private message me. And then the last piece that you really need to think about and should be in your campaign plan is essentially how do you account and report on gifts. When do you count pledges? Do you count pledges towards amount raised? Do you count planned gifts or bequests or wills that have been promised, even though they're not actually realized? What are your acknowledgement systems like, and so forth and so on. So I highly recommend that gifts have in some kind of a gift acceptance policy in place. If they don't have one for the organization, certainly having one for the capital campaign, but also looking at how do we recognize gifts that are coming from estates. How do those get recognized? Do we put plaques up for someone who may have put their name your name in a bequest? So all interesting topics, but certainly what goes into campaign planning is recruiting the best capital campaign team, creating your fundraising goal, backing out promised revenues and coming up with actual campaign costs, developing the gift range chart, creating that WOW donor recognition plan, putting together a timetable that is very, very realistic, and again is based upon the needs of the organization and the donor base, and then accounting for and reporting on campaign gifts. One of the other things that should be a part of campaign planning that I did not mention is essentially putting together the case for support that will actually be the messaging for the campaign, and that will go into collateral materials. This is a little summary of a fuller webinar that I do for Charity How To. As I was noting earlier, it's an organization that provides very tactical how-to webinars for nonprofits, and I do one that's an hour and a half, and I've just given you the major nuggets of it very, very quickly, and actually that capital campaign webinar I think is coming up. I'm doing 2 of them, I believe, in the month of June, although I could be wrong. I don't know my schedule until I see it these days. But it's a great webinar. It's a top-rated webinar that I've been doing for at least 3 years now. But I hope that you have gotten some key pieces out of this little mini training. Again, I'm at the seagulls are talking to me today, right? They're not the pretty birds I'm accustomed to. They're the seagulls like we have in the United States. But anyways, I'm here at beautiful Mollymook Beach. This is not in front of where I stay, but it's the same beach. I was trying to scout a new location for this training this week, this live Facebook training, and trying to bring you unique locations throughout Australia as I travel about. Next Saturday, I actually will be live again with another topic here at Mollymook Beach. And after the Saturday after, I am not sure if I'm going to be still in Fiji, but if I can do a live Facebook from Fiji, I will certainly do that, so you can get a taste of what Fiji is like. And of course, every week I have this sunglass fetish, and I bought these at last week I had on my hibiscus glasses, and this week these are surf glasses, Pervs. Kind of weird name, but I've got probably about 10 more pairs of sunglasses I bought along the way. So these were bought at a surf shop south of Brisbane on the Gold Coast. But I look forward to seeing you all next week and joining you live with another important topic and mini training. So you all have a great rest of your Friday evening, and I'll get my Saturday morning started in.